Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness. Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant. Oh, he hit it. John Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. Today's episode is going to be a news and rumor roundup. We'll also highlight some clips from social media that apply to the Grizzlies. And of course, we will talk about Jaren Jackson Jr. blocking 6 shots for Team USA and helping anchor a comeback victory over Germany. Today's episode is once again brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. I hope those of you who listened to last Friday's episode got the free giveaway from Underdog. If you haven't tried Underdog Fantasy yet, sign up using promo code FBBF, and Underdog will double your opening deposit up to $100. Once again, that is promo code FBBF, as in Fast Break Breakfast, or you can just click the link in this episode's description. All right, Team USA finished up their exhibition play ahead of the FIBA World Cup with a wild comeback victory over Germany. They ended up 5-0 in exhibition play, but had a couple of scares, particularly this game on Sunday. They trailed by 16 points in the third quarter, but Tyrese Halliburton hit a few threes in the third to shave into that lead, and then over the final 6 minutes or so with Jaren Jackson Jr. on the court, Team USA put together an 18-0 run to go from down 86-77 to up 95-86. Jaren contributed a couple of blocks in this run, had some all-around good defense. There was a sequence where he got switched on a Dennis Schroeder. Schroeder drove on him. Jaren blocked the ball against the backboard, led to an Anthony Edwards three-pointer that tied the game. And then with the combination of Anthony Edwards' heroics, some nice defense from Jaren and Austin Reeves and Tyrese Halliburton, Team USA ended up pulling away. Anthony Edwards was honestly the big story from this one. If we take off our Grizzlies colored glasses, Anthony Edwards was massive, scored 34 points, having an absolute breakout so far in the FIBA exhibition series. I mean, we know Ant has already been good in the NBA. We saw him up close in the playoff series 2 years ago. I do think as Grizzlies fans now, watching this Anthony Edwards Team USA best player and hero, maybe we can be a little bit concerned that he might make a full-on leap into superstardom or into the All-NBA tier, and that makes Minnesota potentially a very tough matchup in the Western Conference. Of course, the Timberwolves last year won 42 games without, Cat. Karl-Anthony Towns missed a lot of the season. If Karl-Anthony Towns is healthy, if Anthony Edwards continues this awesome play, if Mike Conley has a little bit more in the tank, you could see the Timberwolves being neck and neck with the Grizzlies. And I would guess, just based on, say, his performance on Sunday and based on what he's going to be doing in the FIBA World Cup, we're going to see a lot of people probably predicting that the Timberwolves finish ahead of the Grizzlies. Not that that matters, of course, but I think it's fair for us to say Anthony Edwards is real good, and he's going to be a problem probably in the Western Conference for a while. But looking at Jaren's game, where again, 6 blocks. One was a totally obvious goaltend that the refs missed, but he once again was a force in the paint. One of the only basically rim protectors that the Team USA has, one of their only bigs that's, really that usable. I think it's going to be a problem, frankly, for Team USA. Maybe when they play Spain again at the actual World Cup, when they play France, if they end up playing like Jonas Valanciunas, if they end up playing maybe Serbia, who I think has a couple of big guys, of course not Nikola Jokic. He's not there. But I think the lack of size outside of Jaren is going to be a problem for Team USA. But Jaren finished this game with 7 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 blocks. And they posted him up. He didn't touch the ball that much on offense, but he did start each half kind of comically with a post-up and scored. It was very reminiscent of like Bill Cartwright back on the Bulls days, or maybe 90s basketball, where teams would let their center shoot the first shot of the game as kind of a thank you for doing all the dirty work, but then they never touch the basketball again. But Jaren continues to be one of Team USA's best players. Anthony Edwards, I think, rightfully getting all the headlines as the go-to scorer. But if you just talk about maybe most important overall to the team, I think Jaren is more irreplaceable right now. Like if Anthony Edwards wasn't there, surely Jalen Brunson could step up, or Mikal Bridges would step up and have a big game, or Tyrese Halliburton could carry the scoring load, or maybe Brandon Ingram would have a good game again if they turn to him as the go-to scorer. But they do not have anyone who can do what Jaren can do. They have Walker Kessler, who they don't play that frequently, to guard the rim. But as far as versatile bigs who play the small ball style they're going for, Jaren might, in that instance, be the most irreplaceable member of Team USA. Of course, the World Cup starts on Saturday. The first matchup is against New Zealand. Unfortunately, Steven Adams is not available to play for New Zealand. Now, speaking of Steven Adams, there's been a couple of bits of news about him, or just maybe rumors. Well, first of all, there was some funny clips of him going on JJ Redick's podcast, The Old Man and Three. Steven Adams was telling some great stories of his time before the NBA drafts, how basically he had zero expectation of like what the draft process could be, didn't know if he'd even get drafted. He was joking about how in college at Pittsburgh, the year he played, he averaged 6 points and 6 rebounds, which are not obviously impressive stats. And he's saying how he went to every workout he could go to just because it was a free airplane ride. It was a free hotel stay that a team would pay for, and he got free shirts and workout gear. So in his normal self-deprecating and humorous style, Steven Adams was making some jokes about how little he expected from the draft process. Of course, if we want to, actually his story, it was not a surprise that Steven Adams was drafted high. Steven Adams was a consensus first-round pick in all mock drafts. Most mock drafts had him going in the lottery. I found a Bleacher Report mock draft where he was picked 10th, or they predicted he would go 10th in the draft. So if Steven was truly ignorant of where he might end up in the draft, okay, I can kind of believe that, but it wasn't a surprise or anything. He got drafted as high as he did. Also, by the way, this Bleacher Report mock draft I found where they had Steven Adams going 10th, they had Alex Len being picked first, which is a fun reminder that the 2013 draft, where Anthony Bennett was the surprise number 1 pick, the 2013 draft was pretty terrible. Outside, of course, of Steven Adams and CJ McCollum and some other guys. But that was fun. Go check out the clips of that show or listen to the entire podcast for Steven Adams telling some funny stories. Now, in other Steven Adams news, there was a report out of New Zealand that Steven Adams was misdiagnosed by the Grizzlies for his knee injury, and after the season, he got a second diagnosis on his knee and ended up having surgery. This was on a radio show by a guy named Martin Devlin. Martin Devlin on his show, The Platform. He had Pete Pranica on the show, and he told Pete that he had heard from someone close to Steven Adams, obviously take that claim with a grain of salt, that Steven Adams had been misdiagnosed by the Grizzlies. Initially, the team said that they didn't need surgery. Here's the clip. This is Martin Devlin talking with Pete Pranica from his show, The Platform.
Steven Adams is in the country at the moment. He's doing all kinds of fundraisers, rehabbing that very troublesome knee of his. Remember, he missed a huge chunk at the end of the season for the Grizzlies. Big man, putting a lot of pressure on that knee. Well, I bumped into someone this morning, and I won't say who it was, but a very good friend of Steven Adams, spent a fair bit of time with him over the last few days, and he said, mate, did you know, and this is a direct quote, he said that, knee was misdiagnosed by the Grizzlies to start with. and that he went away and they said, no, there's nothing wrong there. And went away, got a second opinion, and apparently the second opinion said, oh, hang on a second, that is just hanging by a thread. And from that second opinion, then he got the surgery, and that has been the rehabilitation process ever since. But Grizzlies got it wrong. That's what we're hearing. Well, let's go to Pete Pranica, who is the game caller on Bally Sports. What do you know, if anything, about this, Pete?
I was not aware of that. I know that Stephen had also seen doctors in Los Angeles. So yeah, that's all news to me. I mean, the Grizzlies physicians typically are considered among the best. In fact, the team orthopedist literally wrote the book on knee surgery in America. So that's surprising to me. Was not aware of that. I'm hopeful that the prognosis for Stephen is good. I don't know if they gave you that information or not, but I hope that he'll be ready to go when we hit training camp in early October.
So Pete obviously did a really good job on his feet, I think, addressing that question. We don't know what the truth is. It does seem like it should be easy to figure out whether or not Steven Adams actually had surgery this summer. But it's an interesting story or rumor. As a general observation, I would say, from my perspective, with no medical knowledge and no inside knowledge, that hearing that something like, all right, this knee injury didn't heal after 5 weeks like we thought it would, and then Stephen got a second opinion and found out that surgery was necessary, that does seem like a possible outcome. But again, I don't know if any of that is true. In other Grizzlies adjacent news, I think it was notable, a lot of us probably saw that T. Morant was at a basketball camp alongside Jose Alvarado, CJ McCollum, and Elfrid Payton. He was at a basketball camp, and he spoke about Ja Morant's difficulties, and he said that, quote, my son didn't get in trouble for the people around him. He got in trouble for his decision. So he was telling the campers, he said, always be mindful of every decision you make, that the smallest thing you can do can make the biggest difference in your life. I thought the clip was pretty powerful because T gets emotional, and he says, he's sort of joking, T says that like he could curse you guys out all day talking to the campers, but when he actually has to offer serious life advice from his own experience, he gets very emotional. So I thought as a fan, it was encouraging to see T say that, and it was moving and emphasizing to the campers that, hey, you need to make the right decisions and taking some responsibility for what Ja Morant has done. I guess we infer that thus Ja Morant has taken responsibility for his actions, and we can cross our fingers that he will, in fact, serve this suspension without any other incidents and can return in that Game 26 on TNT against the New Orleans Pelicans. Other things I kind of got off of social media that are Grizzlies adjacent. There are some summer clips of Josh Christopher dropping a bunch of buckets. Now, we don't normally highlight summer basketball pickup clips, but hey, this is a Grizzlies podcast and it's August. So we can talk about Josh Christopher dropping a lot of three-pointers in some form of open gym. I think it's an open gym. He's playing with some other current NBA players. There also was a picture recently of him with Seth Curry and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, De'Aaron Fox, and Scoot Henderson. So Josh Christopher's been working out with some notable NBA stars. He's putting on, or maybe he's not doing it, but some people are putting on social media clips of him banging a bunch of three-pointers. Of course, anybody who can make NBA threes and has NBA athleticism is going to be notable, and it's going to raise some eyebrows. And, of course, we know the Grizzlies roster situation. They have 17 guaranteed contracts. Right now, we think the easy cuts would be Josh Christopher and Isaiah Todd if it was cut down day today. But you also have to remember, Josh Christopher does have some draft pedigree. He was the 24th pick in 2021. He's only 21 years old, and maybe you don't want to just cut a 21-year-old who can put the ball in the bucket. Of course, now is when I have to point out that his NBA stats in his 2 seasons are terrible. He did have a 30-point game his rookie year for the Rockets. That came in April, near the end of the season, in a game they obviously lost. His highest scoring game from last year came in a game the Rockets lost 153 to 121 against the Thunder. So maybe those stats are as meaningless as summertime social media clips. Going back to FIBA basketball, I guess we could highlight Santi Aldama continues playing for the Spanish national team. He didn't do much in the last game against the Dominican Republic that Spain won. He finished with 6 points, 2 rebounds, and a steal in only 16 minutes. Just looking at the box score, I haven't watched this entire game. Just looking at the box score, he finished with 4 fouls, so I'm going to infer or guess maybe he was battling foul trouble. But one thing he did do that I gathered from watching clips of the game is he played a big role in Karl-Anthony Towns getting ejected. Karl-Anthony Towns picked up 2 technical fouls in this FIBA exhibition, and one of them was where he got called for a foul on Santi Aldama, where Santi was boxing him out, and Karl doesn't do much, but does in fact foul him. He kind of wraps him up from behind, where he's face guarding Santi for the rebound. Santi does the little jump just to show, hey, I'm trying to get the rebound. This guy's not boxing me out legally, and Karl-Anthony Towns got really mad, kind of threw a punch or a little soft air punch to disrespect the referee, got a technical foul. He then mocked the referee, didn't get a technical foul for that. But then later in the game, Cat makes a big 3-pointer and appears to say something to Santi. Perhaps, again, Santi getting under his skin. And that was Karl-Anthony Towns' second technical foul, and he was ejected. And Spain goes on to win the game. So Santi, who has a gift for, I would say, annoying his opponents, is continuing to do that in these international exhibitions. And, of course, again, World Cup starts this Saturday, August 26th. Santi going to play for one of the favorites in Team Spain. Finally, The Athletic dropped their article by Seth Partnow of NBA player tiers. This is a ranking of the top 125 players. It doesn't rank them 1 through 125. It breaks them up. It stratifies them into these tier groups where tier 5 is the lowest and there's more tier 5 players. And then the most exclusive is tier 1. Only a handful of players are in tier 1. The Grizzlies ended up well represented in this list. Ja makes tier 2. He's actually tier 2B to get more specific, which is a really strong rating. There are only 11 players who are separated into higher tiers than Ja. So that seems like a really strong rating for Ja, and being a top 12 player in the NBA or so. Really, really good. Jaren is a 3A. That's his tier, which again, it's rarefied air. It puts him somewhere between the 20th and 30th best player, according to this article. He's listed alongside Bam Adebayo and Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brown, De'Aaron Fox. He's moved up from last season. Last season he was 3C, so he's all the way up to 3A. So I think that's a very respectful rating. Bane is tier 4. He's tier 4A, which again, it's okay. He's higher than a lot of guys who, probably feel like they should be ranked as high or higher than Desmond Bane. He's right alongside Darius Garland, Domantas Sabonis, Andrew Wiggins. He's ahead of Karl-Anthony Towns, for example. So a pretty good showing for Desmond Bane. I think he can rise higher. As I look at some of the names who are 3C, 3B, I think Desmond Bane is going to have a huge season. And I think it's possible he does end up higher on this list next year. But of course, I am not an objective observer. I am a hardcore Grizzlies fan. Other Grizzlies making the list, it's just Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart ended up in tier 4C, so lower than Bane, who was in tier 4A. Steven Adams ended up unranked in this list. Last year, he was in tier 5. So it's an interesting article. It's an interesting way of doing things. Definitely check it out. Read the methodology so you don't get too upset by the rankings. Like all rankings, I remind you, one, they're just for entertainment, and the person who does it is just giving their analysis and insight. And usually, if I'm talking about it, I think it's an intelligent person. I know Seth, he's a great guy, great basketball mind. So take his opinions and research, and you can add those to your own knowledge and opinions. And oh, by the way, maybe some notable ex-Grizzlies. Dylan Brooks was ranked in tier 5, as was DeAnthony Melton. Finally, last thing, if you're watching this on YouTube, here's a clip of our old friend Tyus Jones getting buckets in the Twin City Pro-Am. Every summer, you can guarantee there's going to be some highlights of Tyus scoring in his hometown Twin City Pro-Am. By the way, the Grizzlies will face Tyus Jones and the Wizards in their first road game of the year. It's the third game of the season. If you missed my episode I dropped on Friday about the schedule release, please go back and check that one out. I don't normally release episodes on Friday afternoon, but I figured with the excitement over the schedule, I'd go ahead and get that one out early. Anyways, later this week, I'm going to have another episode out for you guys. It's a fantasy basketball preview of the Grizzlies with Josh Lloyd from the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that. Also, if you want to play fantasy basketball with me this season, or if you want to play fantasy football with me, I offer that to my Patreon supporters, those of you who subscribe at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Right now, the fantasy football sign-up is underway. If you join that Patreon, you can play fantasy football and basketball. Also, you can get access to the Slack channel. You can ask me Grizzlies questions anytime you want. Also, you get exclusive bonus content. So if you want all that and want to support the creation of Grits and Grinds, go to patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, that is the episode for today. Hope you have a great Monday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.